In this beginner tutorial, I'm going to be going over the basics of animation, and at the end of the learning process, we will make a small animation ourselves. Let's get started. So we will open up a fresh version of Blender. I am using Blender version 4.1, but most versions of Blender will work for the sake of this tutorial. This is the scene you'll be met with as soon as you open it up. Now to select everything in the scene, hit A on your keyboard for all and delete it, because this is Blender, and we're going to hit Shift A, Mesh, and add in a cylinder just to spice things up because the cube is getting a little outdated. So if you click on your object, left click on your object, you'll see it has this orange outline around it. You can change that in your settings, but by default it's orange. This means this is the object selected. For instance, if I make a few duplicates of this, it will tell you by the orange outline which one you have selected. And this is in object mode. We're mostly going to be dealing with object mode for this tutorial, because it is the basics of animation. Open your outliner up here. It will tell you what you have selected in your scene. This is a basic collection of everything in your entire scene, which is this huge, vast, unlimited space here, okay? This is the 3D world. You can make it as big or as small as you want. The more things you have, the harder it will be on your computer. Now, for the tutorial, we're going to be keeping it with just this cylinder for now, and later on I will show you how to animate the cube. Okay, so there is essentially three different aspects to this object that you will be animating. Those three aspects are the location. I'm changing the location of this in 3D space. The rotation. I am rotating this object in 3D space, and the scale, and I am scaling the object in 3D space. Those three things you can animate as far as an object goes. Those are going to be the three main ones, in fact, that you are going to use most of the time. But let's keep it simple, and I will be animating this cylinder. So down here at the bottom, you will see the timeline by default. If you go to this little drop-down menu, you can see it is called the timeline. That's one that's highlighted. This is the animation section here, and timeline is underneath the animation section. We're not going to be diving into the graph editor just yet, because in my opinion, that's slightly more advanced. But if you guys want to, drop a comment down below and let me know if you want me to cover the graph editor. For now, we're going to be using the timeline. If you put your cursor right at the top of the timeline, you will see that you get these little arrows. Left click when you see the arrows, and you can drag up and drag down to move the window. I like to have a little bit of space like this, just so I can really kind of see what I'm doing as far as my keyframes go. If you hold your middle mouse wheel in the viewport, you can pan around this little dot or your object. If you hold shift and middle mouse wheel, you can move side to side. And those are the basics of moving around inside of the 3D space. So let's get to animating. If you hold your middle mouse wheel down in this timeline, you can also move it back and forth. And these are where the keyframes will appear. Keyframes are a representation of where the object is to where the object is going to be. Whatever object is selected, that is what the keyframes will show up for. Let me show you an example of the three main ways you can animate something that we talked about in the beginning. With your mouse in the viewport and the object selected, if you hit I on your keyboard for insert, you will insert a keyframe for this object. You can see this little dot has appeared on our timeline here. You can see this little orange dot. That is this object at this exact coordinate. The location, rotation, and scale of this object has now been recorded on the timeline, represented by this dot. If I go to say 10 and I change the location with G to grab, R to rotate, S to scale, and hit I again, I have now saved this location, rotation, and scale. So if I hit play, you can see that it animates. Let me end this at 50 for now. And you can see this gray portion of the timeline has ended at 50. That means it will end and loop back. For instance, once this gets to 50, it automatically loops back. You can change this number to whatever you want. Just know that this is the end of your animation. So I'm going to hit A down in the timeline to select all the keyframes and delete to get rid of them. With my cursor in the viewport, it's very important that your cursor is in the viewport. When you hit I, when you have the item or object selected, you want to insert a keyframe for. So hit I to insert the keyframe. So you have this base right here. If you don't, and I'll just Control Z that real fast, if you don't have a keyframe here and you think, oh, I'm just going to animate it from here to here, and you hit I, right? Well, no, it's now it's here. It never was here as far as Blender was concerned. So that's not going to work because Blender does not have a reference keyframe to where you wanted it to originate. Let's go ahead and give this a little bit of an animation. Hit I, so you have this base position. Let me move it to 10. Hit S, and I'm going to hit Z to constrain the scale to the Z axis, just to stretch it up like this. I'm going to rotate it on the X axis by 90 and hit I. Now you can see it has animated that for me. The reason it is doing the in-between frames for me is it is blending these two keyframes together, thus the name Blender. It's a animation blending software. Now you know the basics. I'm going to go ahead and delete that cylinder and we will go ahead and get started with the actual tutorial. So go ahead and hit Shift A, Mesh, and add in a cube. Using the knowledge that we have gained previously, we're going to go ahead and animate this cube as you see here. Just remember, every time you want your object to go to a new place and have a new keyframe, you need to move the timeline past your previous keyframes and hit I to insert wherever you moved it to. So from where it was, hit I, move your timeline, move your object, and hit I again. I'm going to go ahead and select the cube, hit G, Z, and move it up just a little bit so the bottom of the cube is resting on the X and Y axes, or the red and yellow lines underneath it. To go ahead and get this started, we're going to select the cube, make sure you are on frame 1 by hitting back to the beginning button, and hit I to insert a keyframe. I'm going to hit G and Y to move it forward a little bit. G, Y, and move it forward about the whole length of the cube, and hit I to insert that again. Now it doesn't matter that I've already hit I, because you can insert over a keyframe. So hit R, X, and rotate it by typing in 180 and then hit enter and hit I again. If you now play, you'll see that it rolls. If you don't see all these yellow dots, that's okay. I'm using the dope sheet for this tutorial, but the timeline will just show a single dot, but it's the same thing. Don't be worried that you don't see all the dots I see here. It will work just fine. So I'm going to go ahead and move to frame 40 by clicking down here and typing in 40, or you can grab your timeline and scrub over to 40. I'm going to hit G for grab, Y, and just move it over about the width of the cube. Hit R, X 180 and enter for 180 degrees, and hit I again. If you now play it, it gives you a rolling kind of effect. That's great. So now we're going to add a little bit of a scene here, just for things for it to hop around on and look like it's interacting with. So I'm going to hit Shift A, go to Mesh and add in a plane. Shift A, go to Mesh and add in a cylinder. I'm just going to kind of shrink the cylinder down by hitting S to scale it around. and G to move it, GY to move it on the y-axis. You can Shift D or duplicate and just kind of move it around and give yourself a few platforms or pedestals for this cube to move around on. So we're going to go ahead and select the cube again and hit R to rotate it, RX. And where this bottom left point of the cube is, we kind of want to make sure that's in the same place. So I'm going to rotate it on the x-axis and then grab and move it around so that point is in essentially the same point it was in. The edge of the cube, the face of the cube, is hitting the edge of this platform, so I am going to hit GZ and move it up just like it would in reality. If the cube somehow rolled up onto this platform, it wouldn't just phase through it. So now, as you can see, it gives the illusion of rolling up onto the platform there. So I'm going to move my timeline to 40, hit RX now that we've inserted that keyframe, and we're going to get it up onto the platform. GZ, GY, and now that it's on the platform, hit I again to insert that keyframe. Now if you scrub through, you can see you have the illusion of the cube rolling up there. If you go back to the beginning on your timeline, hit A to select all and S to scale the keyframes, you can scale them back and try to fit them all within the 20 mark just to speed it up. I'm going to be doing this a lot throughout this process, and you will be too every time you animate something, just in case you want to speed up or slow down the process. So now we're going to go ahead and move this cube into position to roll up onto the second platform, adding in keyframes at the key points. So one rotation, keyframe, move it over, rotate it again, because it's every time you move it forward in the straight line, it's going to be rotating because it's rolling. So we're going to rotate it and add a keyframe and then move it into position. Now it is on top of this cylinder. And hit I for that insert. So if you watch it play, it kind of does a little hop like that, like it's kicking itself up off the ground. I'm going to go ahead and reorient these platforms so they all line up, just to make it a little simpler for the tutorial so it doesn't take too long. Okay, so far we have it rolling. We're going to hit GY and move it over towards the last platform here. We'll give it this kind of sliding effect. So we'll go ahead and rotate, hit RZ 180, enter to rotate the cube 180 degrees around, and hit I to insert that keyframe. Then when the cube moves up to the second platform, it'll do a little matrix spin. Now let's get it up onto the last platform here. So just kind of maneuver it into position using what you know by hitting G and moving it around just so it's kind of up on top of this secondary platform. Just like if you imagine like a slinky going downstairs or a cube rolling downstairs, imagine it rolling up the stairs. And the edge of the cube would be hitting the edge of the step, rolls up there, okay? And then we are going to be rotating this cube again on the x-axis to keep it rolling up on top of this. Boom, just like that. I hit GY just to move the tip that's hitting the platform over to give it the actual illusion of continuously rolling. A lot of animation is getting your timing down, getting the view of it down so it actually looks proper, and essentially you're just tricking people's brains into thinking, yeah, that looks like it could actually happen. Or even if you don't, if it's something that's fantasy, it still kind of needs to be sort of believable, right? So it doesn't want to look so outlandish that it just looks terrible and your brain says, man, that's weird. So we still want it to look sort of realistic, even if it's outlandish. For instance, how is this cube moving itself, right? That's not realistic. Yeah, so I'll just hit A in the timeline, G to move all of them over, move the cube back a little further than its starting position, and hit I at the very beginning of your timeline so it slides into this roll. Now I'm going in between all of my keyframes, seeing where the cube is and adjusting it as I need to and inserting that keyframe. You will be doing this a lot if you get into animation, just kind of tweaking the keyframes and getting them essentially where you want. See how I added that one in the middle and it made all the difference on that first step. So now that we have the cube up on top of this last platform here, let's make this platform an elevator. All you have to do to achieve this is select your cube, shift select your cylinder, hit I to insert both of their location, rotation, and scales, hit GZ to move them both up, hit I to insert a keyframe up top. So now it's going from down below to up top. I'm going to do a little bit of model manipulation on this elevator. You don't need to do this. And now it just looks like it has a little bit of a pole or a shaft to actually be elevated on instead of just floating. But again, it's not necessary. So now that you have the cube at the top, when the elevator hits the top, we're going to grab the cube, G, Y, G, Z, just to make it look like when this stops, it is going to fly off the end there. Boom, it is going to now fly off of the elevator. I'm just going to grab the very first keyframe, Shift D, and move it to the end of all the other keyframes so the cube ends up in the same place it started. If you make the end point where that keyframe you just duplicated is, when it hits the ground again, it will seamlessly loop through this little animation here. And now you are a master of the basics of animating in Blender. Thank you very much for watching my video. I hope you learned something from it. Go ahead and subscribe and like this video for more content like this. If you guys have requests or comments about things you want to be done in Blender or that you would like to learn in Blender, I would be more than happy to make a video on it at a later date. So drop a comment down below at what you would like to see.